It's all about free agency this week and next in the NFL, and a lot of your teams that you're watching, if you're a fan, you're saying, what is my team doing? Well, we're going to try to do our best to kind of give you some strategies and maybe take some shots on what your team is up to over the next 14 days. This is the top 5 free agency teams to watch, and we've already done the Buccaneers at 5, the Eagles at 4, who are in salary cap hell. What about number 3, the most fascinating team to me? I'm going to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
Pittsburgh Steelers, Steelers, they need to do a lot, and they're already taking immediate steps to address their team and why they came up short last year. Here are 3 things I think they've got to do in free agency. Number 1, address that putrid run game. First time putrid has been used, and I'm putting it in quotes. It is that bad. If you watch the Steelers this year, you might be like, well, they were the worst team in football running the ball. This is Franco Harris. This is Bam Morris. This is Jerome Bettis. This is Barry Foster. This is Le'Veon Bell. The Steelers, worst team in the league when it came to running the ball. Putrid is the word. So how do you address that in free agency? Well, one step was done. James Conner not franchise tagged. We'll see if he's given a deal once free agency starts, but I don't necessarily think he's coming back as the number 1. And do you possibly address that with free agency? Do you spend money on a better running back, or do you beef up the line? We know Pouncey's not coming back at center. Alejandro Villanueva was not franchise tagged. He will not be coming back. There are some serious question marks on the offensive line and in the running game. And for the Steelers to do anything next year, the putrid running game needs to be addressed. Coming in with some hot fire here on a Wednesday morning. Number 2, all right, Big Ben said, I'm going to take a salary cut. Take $5 million, no gimmicks. This isn't one of those restructures. He literally said, I will make $5 million less. Go use that money. Put Big Ben's salary to use. Here are some of the notable free agents. Do you want to bring back one of these guys? They all were pretty good, and I look at them as good Steelers, Bud Dupree especially at the bottom. Or do you hit free agency and say, okay, this is going to be able to afford us a couple more players? Guys that maybe can make a difference, whether it be at the tight end position, whether it be on the offensive line, or whether it be at the defensive spots where they actually had holes when there were injuries last year. Steelers were amazing until the injury bug hit them on defense. Look, you don't get a quarterback often saying, here, just take $5 million. Brady does it all the time. He restructures, he makes a deal. We're watching quarterbacks sign $40 million deals. Ben, I'm not saying Ben's the most noble guy in the world for doing it. He's made $262 million over the course of his NFL career. In fact, I read Big Ben has made more as an NFL player than any player in the history of the sport. $262 million with all the contracts.
I thought it was still Sam Bradford.
It's not Sam Bradford.
I was going to say Sammy B.
Roethlisberger.
So he's saying it was Chase Daniel and Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, Daniel cleans it up.
Roethlisberger saying, here's $5 million. It's almost saying, we've had a great run. Here it is. I'm going to give you, make use of that money.
Okay.
I don't know who that is or what that is, but don't put that to waste and don't not use it. And lastly, here we go. Make Canada great again. What is Canada? It's Matt Canada. It is the offensive coordinator.
It's Terrence and Phillip.
No, it's the offensive coordinator. Talking about Chase Claypool, sure. This is the guy. You're saying, who is Matt Canada? He's been around the league.
Tell me about him.
The 20-year vagabond as far as college coaching goes. They could have hired anybody as a new offensive coordinator. This is who they hired, and what he does, he's been the quarterback's coach last year, is a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of jet sweep. How are you going to make that work? Well, you have to bring in some skill position players, and you need to have a better offense than what we saw last year down the stretch. Free agency can be a lot of things. It could be a lot of times teams sit back and wait. A lot of times they bring back their own players. Steelers have just enough salary cap space now and are letting enough guys walk out the door where they could make a splash signing, or they could just get a lot of cool key pieces that could contribute. I think the Steelers are at this really interesting fork in the road.
Yeah.
Ravens, Browns, Bengals, they're not going anywhere.
And they're on the
only
rise.
Getting better. They're on the rise. Steelers, I'm not sure. Kay Adams, what is the most perplexing thing as far as the Steelers go?
That they have a window, that Ben gave money back, and do front offices think about the next year? You have Minkah Fitzpatrick, you have TJ Watt. I imagine that went into their decision to not tag Bud Dupree, who's an impactful player. Before his ACL injury, they were 11-0, then they were 1-5 without him. Does that factor into what they're doing, the decisions they're going to make for this year? Because they want to win the Super Bowl this year, but they also have to think TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, two absolute forces we need to pay later.
Absolutely. That said, you could franchise Bud Dupree, and it won't even affect that next year. If
Got
you
it.
wanted to say, hey, for one more year, we could kick the can down the road. Bud Dupree is now a free agent, coming off an injury, but
In December.
they missed him huge last year. They
doubt.
were 11-0 with him in the lineup. They were not without.
Sometimes we get too caught up in like when Steelers football was Steelers football and you run the ball. And sometimes it's like, no, go to a modern offense. And yet I look at their division, like the Browns run the hell out of it, the Ravens, the Bengals, like they all do that, and the Steelers are just completely missing. So, Peter, Matt Canada, is this his real name? Like, you've investigated this actually? Are they going to have the strange brew offense and inject young blood into the... What's this guy? Is this guy going to run the ball?
This is the Schitt's Creek deep pass, dude.
Hey, baby.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, look, this is what they're putting their eggs in the
That's
basket.
where they are right now, by
And-
the way.
Yeah, and he was the offensive quarterbacks coach last year, so it's not such a rip it up and start anew, but he wants to do some different wrinkles. I don't know if they've got the skill position players or the run game to do it.
No doubt about it. It's the putrefaction of the situation
It is.
straight, the rotten smell. But
Hey,
yeah,
Peter scoffed at $5 million that Roethlisberger gave back. You said it's pennies.
No, it's a lot. I was saying
But he's made so much. That's a pretty big deal.
it's a huge deal, and for them to convince him to do that's a huge deal.
They better
Yeah.
use it right, is
Yes.
what you're saying.
and I like the fact that he cut his salary, and I said it before, I like the fact that he cut his weight, cut his beard. He's going to have to cut the mistakes. And listen, regardless of what they do with the offense, pretty sure they're going to let James Conner walk, Juju Smith-Schuster walk, and they have wide receivers and some running backs, but they're going to have to address the offense because it was good enough to have an 11-0 record and then fell apart later on in the season. You were spot on, Shregs.
Aaron Jones to the Steelers. They
like
wish- Can they pay him?
No,
Do they,
I-
I don't
probably
think
not.
they do.